That's what it was for me for a while. I would go through my life, things would happen. Maybe I wouldn't be as successful as I wanted, or I would get a bad grade on a test, or I wouldn't ask out the girl I wanted to do, you name it, whatever it is. And because of that, I almost became addicted to putting myself down. Now, I know that sounds kind of weird. You're like, this dude really just said he got addicted to putting himself down? Like, what are you talking about? But that's exactly what happened. It became comfortable for me to constantly say, Scott, you're so worthless. Scott, you'll never amount to anything. Scott, this world doesn't need you. That became such a second nature thing to me that that's all that I ever started to think about. And for me, trying to tell myself that I had value and that I mattered and that my life was worth something, that was so foreign to me, I never would have in a million years ever thought of saying that to myself. And that just shows how worn down the neural pathway was for me of this negative self-talk. And I really did become addicted to it. And that's the thing. Addiction can happen in any way. It's not just like the typical things we think about. It can be something as odd as like what I just said, being mean to myself. Now, the process for me to try to get out of that was something I'm still working on, of course. It's forever a process. No one ever has it 100% down. But I remember it started in college when I really started to see a shift where I said, hey, you know what? I found out about cognitive behavioral therapy and the whole idea that our thoughts are connected to our feelings, which are connected to our actions. And I realized that my thoughts were such these horrible things I would say to myself that all the time I was then feeling worthless. I was feeling sad. And because I was feeling that way, my actions followed suit. I would take action on things when I was feeling sad or worthless. And then you know what that would do? It would provide more evidence back to that initial thought that I was worthless, or whatever it was. So you can see how this cycle becomes A, comfortable, B, vicious, and C, very hard to break. Now for me, what I started to do is I would write this stuff down. That became my first thing of how I started to get out of it. I would write down the thoughts I was having. And when I would reread it and look at it, I would say, my goodness gracious, Scott, this is worse than what people would say to, their worst enemy. And I'm saying this to myself. And that's when it really hit me like, you know what? I need to work on changing this. I have to work on being kinder to Scott Prendergast and what I say up here in my head. And over time, we're time-lapsing a lot here, I was able to catch those thoughts before they really would stick, so to speak, and be able to allow them to pass on through and replace them with positive ones. Now, as we know, we can't always control what comes into our brain. You'll have thoughts pop into your head that you're like, I don't want that there. You can't always control that. However, and I've said this before, you can control what you choose to focus on and what you choose to take action on. That is totally up to us. And that's something that I had to really make sure that I was working on every single day and holding myself accountable for, so that way I didn't fall back down into that trap of being so negative towards myself.